Welcome back to the Explainer. Okay, today we are making a massive shift. We're officially putting away the imaginary worlds and fiction books, and we are stepping directly into the real world. Welcome to Unit 1, Lesson 2, Types of Nonfiction. Over the next few lessons, we aren't just going to be readers, we're going to become detectives. Today, we're building what I like to call the Nonfiction Investigator's Toolkit. We're going to take the standards straight from your guided notes and turn them into highly practical, real-world analytical skills. So get ready, because the way you read the news, opinions, and history, it's about to change forever.
So think about this. How do writers actually get you to believe them? When you read a nonfiction text, you aren't just passively absorbing facts. You're reading a case that a writer is actively trying to make. They want to build credibility, they want to influence your thinking, and they absolutely want you to buy into their perspective. Our job today is to learn exactly how they do that and how we can solve those cases like true investigators.
Okay, let's dive into this briefing. Today's 6-part agenda covers decoding nonfiction texts, finding the central idea, evaluating author purpose, breaking down claims, reasons, and evidence, writing objective summaries, and finally, a toolkit review.
Section 1. Decoding nonfiction texts.
Step 1 of any investigation is identifying exactly what kind of evidence we're looking at. Because when we shift from imagination to fact, the rules fundamentally change. So here are our common nonfiction suspects. This is the key vocabulary we'll be analyzing. We've got biographies, where an author investigates and writes about someone else's life. We have memoirs, which are these highly personal reflections written by the subject themselves. We've got essays, which are focused pieces diving deep into a specific subject. Then there are articles, the standard informational texts you find in journalism that are just designed to report facts. And finally, arguments, where the writer takes a firm stance and tries to convince you they are right. Knowing which one of these suspects you're reading instantly tells you what kind of clues to look for.
Section 2, finding the central idea.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we need to split our focus into two distinct levels when reading, the macro and the micro. On one side, we have the central idea. This is the big picture. It's the core message the author desperately wants you to walk away with. On the other side, we have the supporting evidence. These are the specific facts, statistics, and quotes used as proof. And I want to point out a very common misconception here. A lot of students think the central idea is just the topic. They'll say, oh, this article is about recycling, but it's not. Recycling is just a topic. The central idea is the specific message about that topic, something like recycling is essential for reducing harmful landfill waste. The supporting evidence is simply the data that used to back up that big picture message.
Section 3. Evaluating author purpose.
Let's slow down for a second and look really closely at this definition. Author purpose is the primary reason, intent, or motive a writer has for creating a specific text. Basically, what is their agenda? Every single piece of nonfiction was written for a reason, and as readers and investigators, our job is to evaluate this impartially. We aren't here to judge if their motive is good or bad, but simply to identify it accurately so we know exactly how to weigh the information they're giving us.
A fantastic way to remember this is the classic PI acronym. Authors generally write to do one of three things. P for persuade, where their goal is to convince you of an argument. I for inform, where their primary intent is to teach you neutral facts, like you'd see in a news article. And E for entertain, where they want to amuse you, evoke emotion, or tell a compelling true story, which we often see in memoirs. When you figure out a text piece of the pie, you instantly understand the author's underlying motive.
Section 4. Claims, reasons, and evidence. Let's move to how this builds, step by step, into a sturdy structure. Every solid argument has 3 critical layers. Step 1 is the claim. This is what the author believes. Step 2 is the reason. This is why they believe it. And step 3 is the evidence, the actual undeniable proof. Let's look at a worked example to make this crystal clear. Imagine you're reading an article about aluminum can recycling. The authors claim, their main stance is, we must aggressively recycle aluminum cans. Okay, fair enough, but why? Their reason is because it saves massive amounts of energy compared to making new aluminum. But we don't just take their word for it, right? We need step 3. Their evidence is data. Recycling just one single aluminum can saves enough energy to power a television for 3 solid hours. Do you see how that structure builds a rock-solid credible case? Claim, reason, evidence.
Section 5. Writing objective summaries.
Okay, imagine a grade 7 student is asked to summarize an article about school nutrition, and they write, "This article about school lunches is totally wrong and stupid because pizza is obviously the best food." Now, as an investigator, your alarm bells should be ringing loudly. This is a humorous but very real example of exactly what we should never do. It is heavily biased and absolutely packed with personal feelings.
Let's compare that biased summary to an objective one. An objective summary requires neutral reporting of pure facts and author claims. You kind of have to act like a referee in a sports game. You don't care who wins, you just call the plays as they happen. An objective version might read, the author claims that school lunches require more nutritional variety, citing a lack of daily vegetables. Notice the difference there? The no opinion rule is in full effect. You are simply stating what the text says without taking a side or injecting your own very strong feelings about pizza.
Section 6, your nonfiction toolkit.
So the crucial point is that all of these individual skills work together to make you a sharp, highly critical reader. Here's your complete toolkit drawn straight from the core outcomes of our Unit 1 Lesson 2 curriculum. You now know how to distinguish claims and evidence, analyze text features to find the central idea, evaluate the author's purpose, and summarize text objectively without personal opinion. As you move through this lesson, we're going to do leveled practice with these tools. We'll start simple by just identifying these elements in short articles. Then, we'll level up to evaluating them, deciding if the author's evidence is actually strong enough to support their claims.
To close out this explainer, I have a final linked lesson check for understanding for you to really think about. Next time you read an article, will you just blindly read the words, or will you investigate the author? You now have the toolkit to look past the surface, decode the motives, and understand exactly how writers build credibility to influence you. Keep these tools handy, apply them to everything you read in the real world, and happy investigating. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you on the next one.